Brussels police have an order to close down the event. Please don't get up yet. To close down the event because we are creating a public disturbance.
So it's, and the lawyer says that that is an order. Let's go to the backstage. Yes. No, just, let's go to the back room.
Can you all move back, please? Move back, move back, move back, move back.
Saurabh, what a video. Thank you so much for joining us. Break down what happened there.
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be on as always. This saga actually didn't begin at the conference itself. What happened is that last week, the original venue that we had planned for NatCon Brussels 2 pulled out. This was Concert Nobel. We had hosted a conference here 2 years ago, thought it was fairly uncontroversial, but they pulled out last second. So we began scrambling, trying to find a new venue. And we do. We successfully find a new venue, the Sofitel. And last night, or I guess 2 nights ago, Monday evening, we find out from the Sofitel that they too will be pulling out of the venue. And what became clear in those couple of hours was that this pressure to shut down this conference was not coming from left-wing activists inside these companies, though I'm sure they had plenty of them. It was coming directly from the mayors of Brussels, all the little constituencies that constitute the city. And so we scrambled and found a third venue, actually run by a bunch of Tunisian Muslim immigrants who were not political at all. They're just businessmen who believe in free speech. And we proceeded to have the conference. I was actually chairing a panel right around the afternoon on Tuesday, which was the first day of the conference, when I start getting text messages from my colleagues saying there has been an order from the mayor of Brussels to shut this event down for quote unquote safety reasons. And shut it down they attempted to do. We had 3 police officers come up and say that this event was now concluded and everyone had to leave. But we decided that maybe conservatives are a little bit too used to bowing down and doing whatever they're told. So we stayed put. We continued having our conference. Our panel concluded. Nigel Farage went on stage. And at one point, the police entered the building and they were going to make their way to the green room to tell us we had to shut things down. When they came in, they saw the packed room, they saw the cameras. They said, "We're not playing your game," and they walked right out. And they proceeded to stay outside the entire time. Eventually, there was about a dozen cops, maybe more, standing outside. But they didn't have the guts to actually shut down the event. They weren't going to enforce the mayor's orders. And so they just stood there. And the new settlement was that it was going to be a game of attrition. They were going to stand outside. And if you left the venue, you were not allowed back in. But no one inside the venue had to leave. And so that certainly caused problems. Our speakers were having a hard time getting in. We had a French member of European Parliament that wasn't allowed in. Keep in mind, they have diplomatic immunity in Brussels. We had Cardinal Gerard Mueller was not allowed in. Keep in mind, this is at one point the 3rd highest ranking Catholic priest in the world. We had all sorts of speakers that had trouble getting in. Eric Zemmour was denied entry. Now, a couple of those people, managed to find themselves through. I don't know if it was through side entrances or what. I'll leave that for investigators to find out. But it certainly caused disruptions. But eventually, we stayed all the way through. We finished our programming yesterday, and late last night, thanks to the wonderful lawyers at Alliance Defending Freedom, we actually won a court case. And today the conference happened and concluded without any fanfare, packed room. Everyone was energized and excited, but it really underlined the need for conferences like this in the belly of the beast of Europe.
So that's an amazing story, and congratulations on the victory. Well deserved. It sounds like at the end of the day, all they did was, number one, give you a whole ton of free press. Thanks to them for that. But number two, like you mentioned, vindicate the exact reason why organizations like yours and why conferences like this need to exist. So tell us a little bit about what NatCon is about, what some of the messages your speakers were talking about are. Obviously, you had a star-studded cast of people there talking about issues that really we're seeing blossom in Europe, but quite frankly, many of our American viewers could feel quite at home with.
Absolutely. National Conservatism conferences are a project of the Edmund Burke Foundation, which I'm the executive director of. And we've hosted conferences across the world over these last few years. We've hosted 3 in the United States, a 4th one coming this summer, and 3 in Europe, in Brussels, in Rome, in the United Kingdom, and again in Brussels this week. The point of national conservatism is simple. We believe that the core of conservatism is national sovereignty, fear and love of God, support for families, these basic time-tested, honored principles that the American right, the European right has often forgotten. And so national conservatism is a movement to revitalize the right in all of these countries and make sure that they are both useful to their host nations, working in concert, and preserving Western civilization. The specific theme of this conference in Brussels had to do with the context we find ourselves in. European elections are going to happen here in just about a month and a half in June, and Europe has a choice. Will it continue to be a coalition of independent nations charting their own destiny, ideally with conservative values undergirding them? Or will it be a totalitarian NGOcracy headquartered in Brussels, run from the top down by leftist bureaucrats? And we've seen in Poland over the last few months, when they had a change in government from a conservative nationalist government to a left-wing one, just how imperial and aggressive the left can be. Their new Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, has gone on a campaign to jail members of parliament, to implement left-wing social ideology at the point of a gun in some cases, and really run roughshod over conservative polls. And so it's a stark reminder of what's at stake in these upcoming elections. So this was a conference to unite conservatives from across Europe, to say that our goal is to preserve the future of the nation state in Europe, and to really send a show of force, and show that force we did. It's a real stark reminder of what happened here in Brussels this week, that if Europe is allowed to be run from the top down by the bureaucrats in Brussels, this is exactly what you can expect. Arbitrary, socialist, destruction of the rule of law, and totalitarian governance coming from this town. Forget the Europe of independent nations, forget the conservative tradition, forget each nation seeking its own path. Really dark days are ahead if Europe doesn't choose a different path.
Which way, Western man? Donald Trump or Donald Tusk? So I have to ask, a big part of what you're talking about isn't just targeting the left, it is targeting the right, this battle between national conservatism and neoconservatism. And it seems like we're at the dying breath of that. We saw Nikki Haley lose. We're seeing these, very, very vicious fights. I don't know if they're necessarily vicious, but we're seeing these drawn out fights over Ukraine funding in the Congress. And hopefully that resolves in a way that actually supports American interests. But with Donald Trump most likely going to win, your organization is one of those that's on really the cutting edge of trying to staff the coming administration with people that are real conservatives, not just big government Democrats by a different name. Tell us a little bit about what your organization is doing to prepare for, and I don't want to make it sound inevitable. Everyone get out and vote, get out and organize, the whole shebang-a-bang, but what are you guys doing to prepare for when and if Donald Trump wins in November?
Sure. So the other hat I wear is I'm the president of American Moment, an organization that was founded in many ways to put NatCons in government, working for congressional offices, public policy organizations, and yes, future aligned presidential administrations. We're nonpartisan. If Joe Biden came to me and asked me to help staff his administration with my people, I'd be glad to do so. I don't think he's going to want my people, because exclusively American Moment trains, identifies, educates, credentials national conservatives, people who share our worldview on the cutting edge of the America First perspective, are highly competent and of good character. But if something changes, I'm sure he can find my phone number. Yes, we're very excited in the hopes that there will be an aligned administration at the end of this year, and the opportunities are really profound. Look, President Trump wins re-election. He's not going to have a lot of time. He's going to have 4 years, and he needs foot soldiers and operatives inside that administration that don't just do what they're told, but will entrepreneurially, independently seek to implement the president's vision, the vision that he has ran and won on time and time again. It's extremely important that we do not get rolled by these left-wing bureaucrats. They're highly organized, they're highly competent, but they are not invincible. And so with appropriate preparation, with what we're doing at American Moment, and with a constellation of allies that are in the same space as us, we believe that there are real opportunities to implement a transformative agenda on the backs of this incredible revolution that President Trump has started, that is really rolling through Western nations and even non-Western nations. Look, the challenges are fairly straightforward. Our families are in trouble. People are not getting married, having kids. They feel like the American dream is out of reach. Inflation and the Biden economy are destroying the middle class. We have a world in chaos because of silly liberal internationalist foreign policy that has worked with neocons to undermine our national interest for decades. We have a lawless southern border and immigration system that's not serving our interests. And we have a culture that is in desperate need of a pro-American, Christian conservative perspective undergirding it. And so the opportunities are limitless. The challenges are profound. 2.2 million federal employees aren't exactly going to just do whatever President Trump asks without any trouble. But I think we can assemble the team to actually make sure that we achieve what it is that we want to in the coming months and years.
Saurabh Sharma, you're a super sharp guy. Folks at home, make sure, go ahead and check out his American Moment podcast. It's one of my favorite listens, deep dives with some very, very smart policymakers. You should all check it out. Saurabh, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me, as always.
And that's all we have for you tonight. Until next time, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @HeyChrisBoyle. If you like the show, please send feedback to chris.boyle@OANN.com. I'd like to thank my production team, my director Jared, my editor Raphael, PA Brittany, and all of you at home, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your night. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We're going to be at the beach investigating the swell with the smell, the stink from down under. You won't want to miss it. Tune in.